My name is Claire Bennett, and for most of my life, I believed my family had already decided who mattered most. My brother, Daniel, was the favorite. He was confident, ambitious, and always knew exactly what to say to our father. I was different. I worked quietly behind the scenes, helped Dad with his paperwork, and rarely asked for anything. My father, Richard Bennett, had built a successful construction company from a tiny office into a multi-million-dollar business. Everyone assumed Daniel would inherit it. Even Dad sometimes joked about it. But 3 months before Dad died, something changed. He asked me to meet him alone in his office. He closed the door. Then he said something I didn't understand. "Claire, when I'm gone, don't believe everything you hear about the company." I stared at him. What does that mean? He opened his desk drawer and removed a small envelope. My name was written on it. "What's inside?" "You'll know when the time is right." I reached for it. Dad pulled it back. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because if I give it to you now, your brother may never reveal what I need to know." I was confused. "What do you need to know?" Dad looked at me for several seconds. "Who he really is." I thought he was talking about Daniel's attitude. I never imagined he was talking about something much bigger. 3 months later, Dad died. The funeral was devastating. But barely a week after the funeral, Mom called a family meeting. Daniel arrived wearing a dark suit and carrying a folder. He looked like he was already preparing to become the new owner. Mom sat at the head of the table. Then she said, "Your father left instructions for the company." Daniel leaned forward. Mom looked at him. "Daniel will take over Bennett Construction." Daniel smiled. "Thank you, Mom." I felt something inside me sink. I wasn't surprised. Still, hearing it officially hurt. Mom turned toward me. "Claire, your father wanted you to receive a cash settlement." "A settlement?" She nodded. "You'll receive a small amount from the estate, but the company belongs to Daniel." Daniel smiled at me. "It's what Dad wanted." I forced a smile. "Congratulations." Daniel stood. "I'm going to make Dad proud." Then he added, "And don't worry, Claire. I'll take care of the family." I looked at him. For some reason, those words bothered me. The following week, Daniel immediately started changing the company. He replaced several managers. Ordered new vehicles. Changed the office design. And announced that he planned to sell 2 properties owned by the company. I called him. "Are you sure Dad wanted those properties sold?" Daniel laughed. "I'm in charge now." "I know, but..." "Claire, you don't work here." That sentence hurt more than I expected. "You're right." "Then trust me." He hung up. That evening, I opened an old box of Dad's belongings. Inside were photographs, receipts, business cards, and handwritten notes. Then I found something strange. A receipt from a law firm. The date was only 2 weeks before Dad died. I recognized the name. Harrison and Cole Attorneys. The same lawyer who had handled Dad's estate. I called the office. "Mr. Harrison is available?" I asked. There was a pause. Then the receptionist said, "He's been expecting your call." My heart stopped. Expecting my call? Yes. The next morning, I went to his office. Mr. Harrison stood when I entered. He looked at me for a long moment. "Claire. Did my father come here before he died?" "Yes." "What did he change?" The lawyer didn't answer immediately. Instead, he locked the office door. Then he opened a safe. He removed a thick folder. And placed it in front of me. "Your father created a second estate document." I stared at him. "A second will?" "Not exactly." "Then what?" "A private amendment concerning Bennett Construction." My heart began racing. Does Daniel know about it? No. Why? Because your father specifically instructed me to keep it confidential until after the company transfer was announced. I stared at him. Why would he do that? Mr. Harrison leaned back. Because your father believed your brother would act differently if he thought the company was completely his. I remembered Dad's words. Who he really is. I swallowed. What did Daniel do? Mr. Harrison opened another file. There were several financial irregularities. My stomach tightened. What kind? Money transfers. To where? The lawyer looked directly at me. A private company connected to Daniel. I couldn't speak. How much? Over $400,000. I stared at the documents. Dad knew? He suspected it. And the second will? Mr. Harrison nodded. That is why you're here. He opened the final page. My name appeared in bold letters. Claire Bennett. I stared at it. What does this mean? Mr. Harrison gave me a serious look. It means your mother gave Daniel the company. He paused. But legally, she couldn't give him everything. I felt my heart pounding. Why? Mr. Harrison turned the page toward me. Because your father named another controlling beneficiary. I looked down. My name was written there again. Then Mr. Harrison said the words that changed everything. Claire, you're the person everyone forgot. Agreement. I stared at the document in front of me. My name is on the company? Mr. Harrison nodded. Not as the person who automatically owns everything. Your father structured it differently. How? He turned the page. Daniel receives operational control of Bennett Construction. But the controlling shares remain protected under a private family agreement. And I control those shares? Only if certain conditions are triggered. I remembered Dad's strange warning. Don't believe everything you hear about the company. What conditions? Mr. Harrison pointed to the agreement. If Daniel attempts to sell major company assets, transfers company money for personal use, or removes protected family interests without authorization. He paused. The controlling shares. Transfer to you. I stared at him. So Dad gave Daniel the company knowing he might lose it? Your father gave Daniel an opportunity. An opportunity to do what? To prove he deserved it. I left the lawyer's office carrying copies of the documents. But I didn't tell Daniel. I didn't tell Mom. For the first time in my life, I kept something from my family. And strangely, I didn't feel guilty. Because Dad had asked me to wait. That evening, Daniel called. Claire, where were you? Out. Doing what? Nothing important. He laughed. You always were terrible at lying. I didn't answer. Then his voice became serious. I need you to sign something. What? A release. What kind of release? It's just paperwork confirming that you have no claim against Bennett Construction. My heart stopped. Why do you need that? Because I'm restructuring the company. I looked at the documents Mr. Harrison had given me. Dad had specifically warned about this. I'll look at it. Daniel sighed. Claire, don't make this difficult. I haven't. You need to trust me. I almost laughed. Trust. That was exactly what Dad had been testing. I'll call you tomorrow. I hung up. The next morning, I met Mr. Harrison again. I showed him Daniel's document. He read it carefully. Then he looked at me. Don't sign this. I wasn't planning to. Your brother is attempting to eliminate your potential legal interest. Can he do that? Not without triggering the clause. So he's already close? Yes. I looked at the document again. Then why doesn't he know? Because your father wanted him to make the mistake himself. I suddenly understood. Dad hadn't created a trap for Daniel. He had created a choice. Daniel could run the company honestly. Or he could try to take everything. If he chose greed, the truth would come out. 2 days later, Daniel held a company meeting. He announced that Bennett Construction would sell one of Dad's largest commercial properties. The property was worth nearly $4 million. I stood at the back of the room. Daniel looked confident. This sale will allow us to expand into a new market. I raised my hand. Daniel frowned. Yes? Why sell one of Dad's most profitable properties? He smiled. Because I'm thinking about the future. Did you consult the board? I am the board. A few employees looked uncomfortable. I said nothing. Then Daniel announced. The contract will be signed Friday. I felt my stomach tighten. That was exactly the kind of transaction Dad's agreement prohibited. Friday morning arrived. Daniel invited me to his office. The contract was sitting on his desk. He pushed it toward me. Sign here. I looked at the line. What is this? Your acknowledgement that you approve the sale. I looked at him. And if I don't? He leaned back. Then you're making yourself the enemy of this company. I slowly stood. I won't sign it. His face hardened. Why? Because Dad wouldn't have wanted this. You don't know what Dad wanted. I stared at him. I know more than you think. Silence. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What did you just say? Before I could answer, someone knocked on the door. Mr. Harrison walked in. Daniel froze. What are you doing here? Mr. Harrison placed a folder on the desk. I believe we need to discuss the proposed sale. Daniel stood. This is a private company matter. Not anymore. He opened the folder. The sale cannot proceed. Daniel laughed. According to who? Mr. Harrison looked at him. According to your father. Daniel's smile disappeared. What did he do? Mr. Harrison placed a document in front of him. Daniel read it. His face slowly turned pale. Then he looked at me. You knew. I didn't answer. You knew Dad left something? Yes. His voice became angry. You've been hiding this from me? No. Then what is it? Mr. Harrison answered. It's the agreement that determines who controls Bennett Construction if you violate your father's conditions. Daniel looked at me. And who gets control? Mr. Harrison turned the document around. Daniel saw my name. His face went completely blank. Claire Bennett. He whispered. No. Then Mr. Harrison said. Your father didn't forget your sister. Daniel stared at me. He planned this. I shook my head. No, Daniel. I looked at the contract on his desk. You planned this. And then Mr. Harrison opened another file. There's one more thing you both need to see. Inside was a bank statement. It showed a transfer made by Daniel just 3 days after Dad's funeral. $425,000. Destination, a private company owned by Daniel. Daniel's face turned white. Mr. Harrison looked at him. Would you like to explain this? Daniel said nothing. Because there was no explanation left. And I suddenly realized. Dad hadn't just suspected my brother. He had been collecting evidence. Daniel stared at the bank statement. His face had lost all its color. I can explain that, he finally said. Mr. Harrison folded his hands. Then explain it. Daniel looked at me. Claire, please. I didn't answer. He turned back to the lawyer. That money wasn't stolen. Then where did it go? I invested it. In your own company? Daniel hesitated. No. Mr. Harrison's expression hardened. In a company you secretly own. Daniel looked down. The silence said everything. I felt betrayed. Not because of the money. Because Dad had trusted us to protect what he'd built. Daniel had been preparing to take it apart. Mr. Harrison opened another folder. This is the final accounting report your father commissioned before his death. Daniel's eyes widened. What? He knew about the transfers. Daniel shook his head. No. That's impossible. He knew about the first transfer. Mr. Harrison placed several pages on the table. Then he discovered the rest. I looked at the documents. There were dozens of transactions. Some small. Some enormous. Together, they totaled more than $700,000. I looked at my brother. Daniel. He covered his face with his hands. I was going to put it back. When? When the new business started making money. You were gambling with Dad's company. I thought I could make it work. His voice cracked. I thought I could finally prove I was capable. I stared at him. You didn't have to prove anything. He looked at me. You don't understand. Then explain it. He took a deep breath. Dad always believed you were responsible. Whenever something went wrong, he came to you. Whenever there was a financial problem, he asked you for help. He shook his head. I wanted him to look at me the way he looked at you. I was speechless. You could have told him. He would have stopped me. Maybe he should have. Daniel looked away. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Mr. Harrison closed the folder. Your father gave Daniel one final opportunity. Daniel looked up. What opportunity? To admit the truth before the company was damaged beyond repair. And if I don't? Mr. Harrison looked at me. Then the controlling shares transfer to Claire. Daniel's eyes widened. How long? Until tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Dad. He had known his son was struggling. He had known Daniel wanted to prove himself. And instead of humiliating him, Dad had created a path for him to recover. But Daniel had chosen secrecy. The next morning, I returned to the company. Employees were whispering everywhere. Daniel had called an emergency meeting. Everyone gathered in the conference room. Daniel walked in carrying a folder. He looked exhausted. I owe everyone the truth. Nobody moved. He continued. I made unauthorized transfers from the company. A shocked silence filled the room. I convinced myself I was investing in our future. He looked at me. But I was wrong. He admitted everything. The room remained silent. Then Daniel said, I am stepping down as CEO. Mom, who had been sitting near the back, suddenly stood. You can't. Daniel looked at her. Mom, I have to. She looked at me. Claire, you knew about this? I nodded. She looked devastated. Why didn't you tell me? Because Dad wanted Daniel to tell the truth himself. Mom began crying. I thought your father trusted Daniel. He did. I looked at her. He just didn't trust his choices. That sentence broke something inside her. After the meeting, Daniel came to my office. He placed a set of keys on my desk. What are these? Dad's office. I don't want them. You need them. Why? Because you're the controlling beneficiary now. I stared at him. What? He smiled sadly. I read the agreement again. You don't have to give me anything. I know. He looked toward Dad's old office. But Dad wasn't trying to punish me. He paused. He wanted me to learn. I nodded. And did you? Daniel smiled. I think so. Then he said something I never expected. I want you to run the company. I stared at him. Me? You know the numbers. You understand the employees. You understand Dad's vision. And you? I want to earn my place. 1 year later, Bennett Construction was healthier than ever. I became CEO. Daniel returned as a project manager. He worked harder than he'd ever worked before. He paid back every dollar he had taken. And slowly, people began trusting him again. One evening, we visited Dad's grave together. Daniel placed a photograph beside the flowers. It was a picture of Dad standing outside the company's first office. On the back, Dad had written, "A company can survive losing money. A family cannot survive losing trust." Daniel read it twice. Then he whispered. He knew. I nodded. He always knew. We stood there quietly. Then Daniel turned to me. Claire? Yes? Do you think Dad would be proud of me? I smiled. He'd be proud that you finally chose the truth. Daniel nodded. Tears filled his eyes. I wish I had chosen it sooner. So do I. We walked away together. The company Dad built remained in the family. But more importantly, the family itself survived. I finally understood the meaning of the words Mr. Harrison had spoken that first day. You're the person everyone forgot. Dad hadn't forgotten me. He had never forgotten me. He had simply waited until the moment I needed to understand why he had trusted me. And that secret will change everything. Not because it gave me control of a multimillion-dollar company, but because it revealed what Dad had been trying to teach us all along. Inheritance isn't about who receives the most. It's about who is responsible enough to protect what was left behind.